Lecture we will discuss the oogenesis. Oogenesis is the process by which female gametes are produced in the ovaries. The process involves differentiation, maturation of precursor cells to mature oocyte through series of developmental stages. This process is occurring in ovarian cortex. It starts at 10th week of intrauterine life, stops at birth and restarts at puberty and continues till menopause. Now, various processes involved are mitosis, meiosis, growth, and differentiation of follicles. All oogonia to be used throughout the fertile life of female are produced before birth. This is important. Now, what are the stages of oogenesis? Now, primordial germ cells, they form the oogonium. This oogonium enlarges to form the primary oocyte. Now, at birth, all primary oocytes are in prophase of first meiotic division and they remain arrested in diplotin stage until begins to mature. So, number is about 40,000. Then, reproductive period of female is 12 to 50 years of age, with which each menstrual cycle a few primary oocyte begins to mature. The ovulation take place when oocyte is in metaphase. So, after that, the primary oocyte undergo first meiotic division, which is unequal cytoplasmic division, resulting into secondary oocyte and the first polar body. And this secondary oocyte remains arrested in metaphase till fertilization occurs. So, next fate of the secondary spermatocyte, it depends upon the fertilization. Secondary oocyte enters second meiotic division and it is ovum and second polar body is formed if the fertilization it happens. Now here is the description, that is there are two stages if fertilization occur and if fertilization does not occur. The secondary oocyte remains arrested in metaphase till fertilization occur. So what is happening if the fertilization is there? Second meiotic division is completed, resulting into two unequal daughter cells. Larger one is ovum and the smaller one is second polar body. First polar body also divides during second meiotic divisions. Then, if fertilization does not occur, this secondary oocyte fails to complete the second meiotic division and it degenerates in about 24 hours after ovulation. In each menstrual cycle, 5 to 30 oocytes start maturing and only one of them reaches maturity and ovulated. So, around 400 ova, they are discharged throughout the reproductive life. Simultaneously, the cyclical changes also take place in the ovaries known as the ovarian cycle, resulting most important event of ovulation. So this is the different follicles they are developing in this stage, and the ova they mature over here, and later on the ovulation occur, that the shedding of the ovum it happens from the Graafian follicle. Now coming to the ovarian cycle. What is this? Basically, cyclical changes in the ovaries during 28 days of reproductive cycle, resulting in the formation of single mature ovum. It includes these three stages, which we will discuss one by one. First is follicular development, then ovulation, then regression of corpus luteum. Events are regulated by hormone signals from the hypothalamus, pituitary gland, and ovaries themselves. And this is the axis, that is hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis. First is the formation of ovarian follicles, which is given the name folliculogenesis. Oogonia present in the cortex of the ovary are surrounded by the stroma. You can see in the diagram, these diagrams are taken from your standard textbook. Some stromal cells, they become flattened and surround an oocyte. These flattened cells ultimately form the ovarian follicle, hence they are given the name follicular cells. And the follicle is called as primordial follicle. Further differentiation of the primordial follicle is arrested till puberty. At puberty, oocyte complete its first meiotic division and this primordial follicle is converted into primary follicle. What is that? The flattened cells, they become columnar and follicle is called now primary follicle, and with this a homogeneous membrane called as zona pellucida appear between follicular cells and the oocyte. Now what is this zona pellucida basically? Now trophoblast has the tendency to stick to the endometrium to which it comes in contact with. So this layer, that is this membrane, it prevents the sticking of the trophoblast during its journey after fertilization in the ampullary portion of the uterine tube to the uterine cavity, so thereby preventing implantation of the blastocyst at the sites other than normal. So thus preventing the ectopic pregnancy. Next, what happens, that is follicular cells, they multiply, they form multiple layers of cells called as membrana granulosa cells, now called as granulosa cells, and follicles is called as secondary follicle. Now after the primary follicle, secondary follicle is formed, in which the granulosa columnar cells, that is which are present around the oocyte, they multiply and they form the multi-layer structure. So these granulosa cells, they secrete the fluid. With the secretion of the fluid, within the intercellular collection of the fluid, it happens, small cavities they are formed, and later on those cavity they join to form a bigger cavity which is known as the follicular cavity. With the appearance of this cavity, it is now called as tertiary or antral follicle, and this cavity is fluid filled. Now this is the matured Graphene follicle. The cavity of the follicle, it increases in size. Wall of the follicle is made up of granulosa cells. They become thin. You can see here they are pushed towards the wall. Oocyte is eccentrically placed, surrounded by some granulosa cells called as cumulus oophoricus. So this is the bulk of cells which are lying towards the cavity. So these are the cumulus oophoricus. Similarly, the cells which are attaching the ovum or oocyte to the wall of the follicle is called as discus proligerus. Now the layer of cells immediately surrounding the oocyte and zona pellucida are called as corona radiata. So these are the granulosa cells which are present immediately next to the membrane, and they are sticking to the wall of the zona pellucida. They are given the name corona radiata cells. Now ovarian tissue which is present surrounding the follicle forms a theca folliculi, which differentiate to form the outer theca externa and inner theca interna. So outer theca externa is a fibrous layer and inner theca interna is glandular and vascular layer. Theca interna secretes estrogen. Now it is called as matured Graphene follicle. The structure of matured Graphene follicle is, its size is more than 25 mm in diameter, consists of secondary oocyte and polar body covered by zona pellucida, contain membrana granulosa, you can see here, then cumulus oophoricus, then theca externa and theca interna. Coming to the next process, that is ovulation, you can see the sequence: development of primary follicle, then secondary follicle, then tertiary follicle, then matured follicle is formed. So the liberation of the shedding of the ovum or secondary oocyte, it will be the better term to define, that is secondary oocyte is released from the ovaries, called as ovulation. Initially follicle is small. As growth occurs, it reaches the surface of ovary and produces a bulge. Ultimately follicle rupture and ovum is released. At the time of ovulation, it is secondary oocyte in metaphase. This is important. Time of ovulation is 14 plus minus 1 day before onset of next menstruation. So this is the sequence. Initially is the follicular stage in which the follicles are formed. Matured Graphene follicle is formed. Liberation of the secondary oocyte, it happens, and later on the luteal phase it starts. So released oocyte is picked up by the fimbriated end of the fallopian tube, you can see here. And if it is fertilized, then complete the second meiotic division, otherwise degenerates in 24 hours and is discharged through vagina. Structure of ovum. Ovum is the large cell measuring more than 100 micrometer, surrounded by zona pellucida. Some cells of the corona radiata are seen sticking to the outside of zona pellucida. No nucleus is seen as the nuclear membrane is dissolved of second meiotic division. A spindle is present between cell membrane and the zona pellucida. So a space is present. This is given the name perivitelline space, in which the first polar body is lying. Coming to the next structure, that is corpus luteum, derived from ovarian follicle once it ruptures to shed the ovum. So after that, it is you can say it is a Graphene follicle after the liberation of the ovum. Mainly secrete progesterone but secrete some estrogen too. This is the structure of corpus luteum. Stages in the formation of corpus luteum is, so follicle ruptures, its wall collapses and become folded. Next is small follicular cells. They rapidly enlarge and acquire a polyhedral shape. Then comes the cytoplasm is filled with yellow pigment called as lutein. Now the follicular cells are called as luteal cells, and because of the yellow pigment, the structure is called as corpus luteum or yellow body. Next fate depends on if the ovum is fertilized or not. So again it depends upon that. Fate of corpus luteum if the ovum is not fertilized. Corpus luteum persists for 14 days and secrete progesterone. Small in size and called as corpus luteum of menstruation. You can see here. Then degeneration occur and fibrous tissue called corpus albicans is formed, which is white body. If the ovum is fertilized, that stage is different. Pregnancy results. Corpus luteum persists for 3-4 months and is called as corpus luteum of pregnancy. Secrete progesterone essential for the implantation of the blastocyst and for the maintenance of pregnancy. After 4 months, corpus luteum is not needed because placenta begins to secrete progesterone. So this is the fate of corpus luteum. So this is all about the oogenesis. Thank you very much.